Welcome, the new video. In this recap, everyone thought he was crazy until he became the only one who could save an entire town from a terrifying storm. In the Spanish town of La Mancha lives Alfonso, the great-great-grandson of the legendary knight, Don Quixote. Known for defeating giants, his great deeds were the talk of the town, though many believed he was mad and that the so-called giants were nothing more than windmills. Years have passed, and in the present day, his last descendant, Alfonso, has inherited Don Quixote's greatest weapon, imagination. In addition to creating 3 imaginary friends in the form of rabbits, the boy spends most of his time with the windmills around town, seeing them as giant trolls. However, La Mancha is being hit by several storms, causing residents to sell their homes and leave the town. One morning, dark clouds begin to approach the region, and Alfonso watches it all from afar, but he believes the storm is just another monster. Just as his great-great-grandfather used to do, Alfonso decides to face the enormous creature and sets off on his bicycle back toward the town. However, the boy ends up pulling on the chain of one of the windmills, causing the blade to come loose and roll toward La Mancha. The object tears through everything in its path, while Alfonso tries to warn everyone that he'll take care of the storm monster on his own. However, more problems arise, and the boy ends up crashing into the wall of a house, with the TV cable getting caught in his bicycle wheel. As a result, Alfonso causes even more destruction everywhere he goes, until he comes across a boy in the middle of the square, holding a dagger. The two confront each other, but it is soon revealed that the boy is his best friend Pancho, the great-great-grandson of Don Quixote's ally, Sancho Panza. In addition to him, Alfonso meets Victoria, a girl who wears an eye patch due to an eye condition, and with whom he is secretly in love. Upon seeing Victoria, Alfonso feels embarrassed and walks away, but is stopped by his mother, Matilda, who has already heard about the commotion caused by her son. In addition to grounding him, his parents are also forced to pay for all the damage caused to the other residents. Meanwhile, Pancho returns home and finds his parents talking to Mr. Carrasco, a wealthy landowner. The man is taking advantage of the storms to buy up the residents' properties, in addition to offering them homes in his new town, Carrasco. And Pancho doesn't want to leave, but his parents are considering closing the deal with Mr. Carrasco. The boy then runs to his room and tells Alfonso everything using a secret landline phone. As soon as Matilda and Mr. Quixote leave the house, Alfonso goes through a secret passage, but Victoria also shows up to speak with the two of them. The young woman, who has been living with her aunt and uncle ever since her parents disappeared on a trip, is also about to move away from La Mancha. To prevent this, Alfonso suggests going into the eye of the storm and defeating the monster, which is located somewhere beyond the forest. Even though they think it's crazy, Pancho and Victoria agree to go along, and they go to pack their things. Hours later, Alfonso is waiting for his friends at home when someone knocks on the door, and the boy grabs his camera to take a photo before the trip. However, instead of his friends, Mr. Carrasco and his security guards show up. They're interested in buying the Quixote's house. Alfonso says the property isn't for sale, but the man wants to buy it no matter what, and even captures the boy to convince his parents to change their minds. After that, Mr. Carrasco and his men prepare to flee when Victoria appears, saying there's a problem with the car's engine. The girl tells them not to worry, since she knows about mechanics, and with her tools, she begins to make the repairs. This only makes Alfonso fall even more in love with her, but in reality, it's all just a distraction so the boy can escape. With Pancho's help, Alfonso slips away without the madman noticing, and after finishing the repair, Victoria says they can leave now. As soon as the driver starts the engine, the car's engine begins to overheat, spewing smoke in all directions. Victoria then flees with her friends on their bicycles, but Mr. Carrasco has no intention of letting them get away with it, and orders his men to capture the group. The trio then races off toward the mountain gorge, but in the middle of the chase, they end up getting separated. Mr. Carrasco continues to pursue them along the narrow path, but the car spins out of control, and one of the security guards is thrown out, landing on top of Pancho's bicycle. The boy manages to shake off the madman and reunites with his friends, but Mr. Carrasco continues to chase them at high speed. Suddenly, they see a huge cliff ahead, and Mr. Carrasco swerves to avoid it, but the car flips over and is hurled far away. The 3 friends celebrate having gotten rid of the man, but the cliff prevents them from reaching the other side. Fortunately, they spot a wooden bridge connecting the 2 mountains, and Alfonso and Victoria cross first, with Pancho following right behind them. Midway across, the ropes and wooden planks begin to weaken, and the bridge starts to collapse. Alfonso rushes to help his friend, but it's no use, and Pancho falls along with the bridge. Luckily, he manages to grab hold of one of the ropes, and Victoria quickly begins to pull him back. Once again, Alfonso is impressed by the girl's determination and looks at her with a loving gaze. For a moment, the girl seems to return his gaze, but in reality, she's trying to ask the kid to help her pull the rope. Alfonso obeys, and with the trio reunited once more, they press on through the vast forest, searching for the storm monster. Far from there, in the city center, Mr. Pancho is showing his dog, Tesla, the model he built of La Mancha. He has always been a great inventor, and thanks to his windmills, Mr. Pancho has managed to generate electricity for the city, storing it all in underground batteries. He continues to show off the model when Alfonso's parents show up and ask the inventor for help, since their son is missing. In addition, Mrs. Pancho reports that her son isn't in his room, and Matilda believes the boys must have gone into the forest to stop the storm. Unlike their ancestors, Alfonso and Pancho's parents don't get along very well, but they decide to join forces to save their children. So, the inventor activates his flying ship and calls on Tesla and Mr. Quixote to go look for them in the surrounding area, while their wives search the city. Meanwhile, the trio continues walking through the forest, but they get lost and don't know how to reach the center of the storm. Pancho thinks it's best to go home and tries to ask his father for help using a communicator inside his jacket. Since they're too far from the city, the radio can't pick up a signal, so Victoria decides to help by using one of Alfonso's fireworks. The boy doesn't think it's a good idea, but Victoria goes ahead anyway and climbs to the top of a tree to launch the firework into the sky. She then lights the fuse, but at that very moment, the kids see an object approaching in the sky. Pancho immediately recognizes it as his father's flying ship and tells Victoria to put out the fire. But the rocket shoots off and hits the ship, which crashes on the other side of the forest. Fearing the worst, Pancho runs to find the ship, and minutes later, he reaches the crash site, but there's no one around. Seconds later, a chicken appears next to the ship, and Alfonso has an idea: to use the chicken to send a message. Using one of its feathers, he writes a letter to his parents, telling them where he is. Then he sends the chicken to deliver the message, as if it were a carrier pigeon, only to realize that chickens can't fly. The bird runs off in fright, and with no way to call for help, the boys have no choice but to keep searching. Amid the ship's wreckage, Pancho finds a footprint shaped like a shoe sole, and given its small size, the boy suspects it belongs to Mr. Carrasco. Just as he feared, the man had found them first and is now with Pancho and Alfonso's parents inside his private bunker. The man tries to convince them to sell their homes, but Mr. Quixote refuses, saying he will never pass on his family's inheritance to the man. However, Mr. Carrasco intends to get their signatures no matter what, and reveals that his plan has always been to take control of La Mancha. To that end, he made everyone believe that the city was being hit by severe storms when, in fact, it was all created by his new machine. He then activates a mechanism inside the bunker, causing the turbines to spew dark clouds into the sky. At the same time, Alfonso and his friends follow the footprints until they come upon a vast stretch of desolate land. There, automated machines are harvesting all the trees and turning them into logs for the construction of Carrascoland. Suddenly, one of the shredding machines begins to suck up everything around it, including Alfonso and his friends. He and Pancho manage to hold on to one of the trees, but Victoria ends up letting go and is pulled toward the shredder. Alfonso then ties a rope to the tree trunk and leaps toward the girl with it, managing to catch her before it's too late. Victoria is amazed by Alfonso's courage, but the shredder continues to pull them in, and the rope won't hold for much longer. Back at the bunker, Mr. Carrasco sees Mr. Quixote's and Mr. Pancho's children on the security cameras and decides to take advantage of the situation to finally buy their properties. He then shows them the camera footage of Alfonso and Victoria about to be pulled into the shredder. Next, he hands them the sales contracts, saying that if they don't sign, neither of them will ever see their children again. To save them, their parents sign the contract, and Mr. Carrasco shuts off the machine at the last second. Even so, the two vow to expose him to the townspeople. But Mr. Carrasco was expecting this and keeps them locked up in the bunker until he buys all the houses in La Mancha. Inside the room, Mr. Pancho begins arguing with Mr. Quixote, saying that if he hadn't let his son run away from home, none of this would have happened. The argument escalates and the two start fighting, drawing the attention of the guards outside. The guards then open the door to control the situation, but it was all a ruse by the two men, who knocked the guards out with punches. They then put on the guards' uniforms and, alongside Tesla, head out in search of an exit without drawing attention. Meanwhile, the guards who had been attacked wake up and sound the alarm against the imposters. Mr. Pancho tells them to split up, and Mr. Quixote heads the other way until he reaches the bunker's exterior. The place is surrounded by a cliff, and to make matters worse, Mr. Carrasco and his henchmen show up to take him back to his cell. At that very moment, Alfonso and his friends continue searching for Pancho's father when they come across the bunker near the cliff. Upon seeing the boys, Mr. Quixote tries to ask for help, but Mr. Carrasco tells Alfonso not to worry, since his father is one of his agents. He even claims that, with Mr. Quixote's help, he has managed to buy up a large portion of the houses in La Mancha, and soon the entire town will be his. Alfonso doesn't believe it, but Pancho is furious, convinced that the Quixotes are to blame for this whole mess. The boy tries to defend his father, but Pancho calls him a traitor and says that because of him, his father is missing. Finally, the boy no longer considers Alfonso his friend and calls him crazy for always living in a fantasy world, just like his great-great-grandfather. Alfonso feels hurt by these words and runs away, while Pancho decides to look for his father on his own. Victoria goes after Pancho to convince him to forgive his friend, when the two end up finding the chicken, still carrying Alfonso's message. The girl opens the letter and sees that the boy didn't just write a note to his parents telling them where they were. The truth is that Alfonso wrote a message asking them not to worry, since he was fine and very happy with his friends. Although the Quixotes and the Panzas don't get along, Alfonso has always considered Pancho his best friend. Furthermore, he confesses his feelings for Victoria and says he's following in his grandfather's footsteps, trying to be a knight willing to help everyone. After finishing the letter, Victoria and Pancho realize that, despite living in a world of imagination, Alfonso has always been a loyal friend. The two then decide to find him, but a huge claw appears in their path and captures Pancho. The claw carries him toward the bunker, where Mr. Carrasco plans to keep him imprisoned inside, along with his father and Mr. Quixote. With the boy in danger, Victoria runs through the forest in search of Alfonso, finding him alone inside a cave. She asks for his help, but Alfonso replies that Pancho was right, and that everything he does only makes other people's lives worse. Victoria says that's not true, and that only he can save Pancho and his parents, who are trapped in the bunker. Seeing that the girl believes in him, Alfonso is moved and hugs her. Victoria returns the gesture, but warns him that they have no time to waste. Nearby, Mr. Carrasco is amused by the whole situation, but Pancho tries to free himself from the claw using his brass knuckles. However, the device is defective and hits the boy in the face, causing him to drop the brass knuckles toward the cliff. Using the bunker's claws, Mr. Carrasco flings the device away, but it lands at Alfonso's feet. The boy stands alone in front of the bunker and vows that he will thwart Mr. Carrasco's plans, no matter what. The man mocks the boy, but Alfonso pulls a whistle from his pocket, one he uses to train birds. As he does so, a flock of chickens appears and charges toward the bunker, invading the ventilation ducts and damaging the control panel. Next, Alfonso grabs a piece of wood and uses it as a skateboard to slide down the embankment. Mr. Carrasco tries to capture him with the mechanical claws, but the boy manages to dodge them and jumps over them, running across the enormous structure until he reaches Pancho. The two friends reunite, and Pancho apologizes for the things he said, but Alfonso says there's no time to waste and asks to borrow a tool. The boy then pulls a retractable spring from his jacket, which Alfonso uses to open the bunker's claws. Pancho is freed, but he has to hold onto the tip of the claw to keep from falling into the huge hole. However, Alfonso tells his friend to let go of the claw, assuring him that everything will be fine, and even though he's scared, Pancho decides to trust him and begins to fall. Seconds later, a huge balloon begins to float, carrying Mr. Penka's flying ship, which Victoria managed to repair just in time. With Pancho safe, Alfonso leaps toward the ship, and the trio tries to escape into the skies, but Mr. Carrasco has no intention of letting them get away. He then activates his secret machine, creating a powerful storm that spreads rapidly across the sky. Dark clouds begin to cover the ship, which is surrounded by lightning and thunder on all sides. Before long, the flying ship will be brought down, so the trio decides to abandon the vessel by parachuting to safety. Alfonso goes to grab backpacks for each of them, but realizes that one of them has a torn parachute. In an act of self-sacrifice, the boy keeps the damaged backpack and hands the other two to Pancho and Victoria without them knowing. Finally, Pancho is the first to jump, and when it's Victoria's turn, Alfonso confesses his feelings to her, knowing he won't have another chance. Victoria smiles and says she feels the same way, but when Alfonso tries to kiss her, she jumps off the ship, telling him that first, he must ask her out on a date. The boy is happy about this, but he fears it might not be possible, since his parachute is torn and the storm is growing stronger by the minute. At that moment, the dark clouds take the shape of a monster's face, which sucks the flying ship straight into its mouth. Alfonso waits for the end, but to his surprise, Pancho appears, leaping through the air, clutching his small dagger. With a well-aimed strike, he slashes the balloon, sending the airship flying at full speed away from the storm. Inside the bunker, Mr. Quixote and Mr. Penca see their children in danger and rush to escape, using one of Mr. Carrasco's motorcycles. Outside, the two set out in search of the flying ship and contact their wives. They reveal Mr. Carrasco's plans and ask them to block the bridge at the city's exit so that the residents won't leave their homes. The two women obey and run toward the bridge, where several residents are leaving the city in their cars. Mrs. Penca tries to warn them that the storms were created by Mr. Carrasco, but no one believes her, and they continue to cross the bridge. Matilda decides to take matters into her own hands, and using Don Quixote's old sword, she cuts the bridge's counterweight, causing it to rise. With the path blocked, the residents of La Mancha can no longer leave, but Mr. Carrasco's plans are just beginning. Far away, he sees the flying ship speeding away from the storm and decides to handle the matter himself. By activating a mechanism on the control panel, the bunker transforms into a robotic spider, and Mr. Carrasco sets out in search of Alfonso and Pancho. What he didn't count on was that Tesla, Mr. Penca's pet dog, was inside the electrical system. Using a blowtorch, Tesla damages the bunker's mechanisms, causing the machine's turbines to shut down. Thanks to this, the storm begins to dissipate, and all the residents of La Mancha realize that the dark clouds were fake. They then head to the town's windmills to take a closer look, just as Pancho and Alfonso land with their flying ship. Both are safe, and Alfonso is reunited with his mother. However, Mr. Carrasco hasn't given up yet and appears with his giant robotic spider. The boy isn't intimidated, and upon seeing the troll-shaped windmills, Alfonso asks them for help to stop Mr. Carrasco. However, nothing happens, and the machine begins to destroy the windmills, with Alfonso watching as his friends are knocked down. Enraged, the boy takes Don Quixote's sword from his mother and stands face to face with the enormous robotic spider, determined to take it on alone. Despite his courage, the boy stands no chance of winning, but Pancho remembers the windmill's underground batteries. The boy then pulls a lever and activates the windmill's blades, protecting Alfonso from being captured by the spider's claws. Alfonso watches as if the trolls were fighting back against the spider, and Matilda, along with the other residents, activate the batteries of the other windmills. With the power of the wind, the blades push the enormous machine toward a cliff. Even so, Mr. Carrasco still resists, and uses one of his claws to pull on the chain of the windmill where Alfonso is. The enormous structure begins to topple, and the boy is pushed toward the cabin of the massive machine, which continues to descend into the huge hole. Despite everything, Alfonso reaches out to help Mr. Carrasco, who is surprised by the boy's noble gesture. Finally, the machine slips off the edge of the cliff, but Mr. Carrasco activates the ejection seat and is launched into the air, along with Alfonso. The two rise rapidly, and Mr. Carrasco tries to hold onto the boy, but fails, and the boy begins to fall. With no way to escape, Alfonso sees his three rabbit friends holding his hands, keeping him company before the end. However, just when all seemed lost, Victoria appears with her parachute and embraces Alfonso midair. With the help of Mr. Quixote and Mr. Penca on his motorcycle, the girl managed to glide through the skies using her parachute and save the boy before it was too late. As soon as they manage to land, all the residents of La Mancha congratulate Alfonso for saving the city. Days later, life returns to normal, and Mr. Carrasco is arrested for his crimes, bringing his plans to build Carrascoland to an end. As for the Quixotes and Panzas, they finally resolved their differences and erected statues in honor of Don Quixote and Sancho Panza. Alfonso finally managed to unite the families and make the Quixotes heroes, but Pancho has bad news and hands his friend a letter from Victoria. The girl explains that, despite everything, her aunt and uncle have decided to move to another city and are about to leave La Mancha. She knew the farewell would be painful, so she didn't tell the two boys and drives to the city bridge. However, Pancho manages to get there in time, and just like Victoria, he says he needs to make some repairs to the car. The girl is happy about this, and right after that, Alfonso shows up and takes her away, without her uncles noticing. The boy promises that he will find her parents so that Victoria can stay in La Mancha. The young woman is happy about this, and Alfonso, Victoria, and Pancho set off toward the horizon, ready to embark on yet another great adventure. Subscribe for more recap videos.